once again by the face of the NHL Network himself, the rather handsome face, might I say, tonight, EJ. Mr. EJ Hradek, how you doing? Oil of Olay twice a day, buddy. We'll be fine. Yeah.
It was a close game. The goalie was great. Stolarz was terrific. They
Fantastic.
got a lead. They were able to play well in front of them and battle. And in the end, they added some goals at the end. And we had all the milestones. Marner 100 points. Matthews 400 goals. So a terrific night for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And now they can get ready for a postseason battle with the Ottawa Senators.
Well, let's start on our list, and let's start with the first division title in 25 years, unless, of course, you count the shortened season from a few years ago, but we're not going to count that for the sake of what this means to the franchise, what this means to the fan base. A franchise that struggled in the playoffs, struggled with seeding. Now they've won their division. They're starting at home. They're probably going to have a lot of home playoff games because of this. What does it mean to the men in the dressing room? What does it mean to the fan base to take the division and punctuate it with a game like tonight?
Well, I think it means a lot to the players in that room and to the coaching staff and to the management. I mean, as for the fans, the fans have seen a lot over the years, and the fan bases that have not had success oftentimes lean on the worst case scenario in the back of their head. But that's fans. That's who we are, I guess, as fans. And I've been victim of that in other sports where I'm more of a fan than I am here, where I'm, been working in this business for many years now. So for the team, though, I think it's impressive. I think Craig Berube came there with the idea this year of kind of getting this team to play a different kind of hockey, and a kind of hockey that can be successful in the playoffs, kind of a harder hockey. And they've had 81 games of it now. I think for the large part, there are always some bumps along the way. They have been very successful in being schooled in that method of hockey. Tonight, for example, a 1-0 game in the third period. They had guys back. They had guys making good decisions with the puck. Yeah, Stolarz had to make a bunch of good saves, but he's part of the team. And the Buffalo Sabres, I think they were 13-2 in their last 15 home games, and they got a lot of good opportunities, and they can score goals if the game opens up. But the Leafs didn't really let the game open up, and I think that goes back to what we're talking about. They're a little bit of a different group this year. They're in a very tough division, and it's been a tough division for the last several years. This year, they're at the first seed. The path is, at least on paper, easier than playing Tampa or Florida in the first round. It will not be by any means easy against a really pesky Ottawa team that will be loose and has a good goaltender. And, there'll be a lot of pressure. But at the end of the day, we'll see if these Toronto Maple Leafs, this group, under this coach, are ready to take on this challenge and move forward in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
And I think it's fair to say that, the division title is sort of a punctuation on the way Berube's kept this team from deep slides. Like, they've had off nights. They've had a couple of off nights in a row, but they've never had long stretches of looking very bad. And that's new for this team, and that's what leads to division titles.
Yeah, they've made some acquisitions in the offseason, right? Tanev came in. He was obviously a big acquisition and part of the essence of how they wanted to change this team, right? And they brought in some different personnel. You got to give John Tavares a ton of credit. He has had an amazing year this year for someone. They took the C from him. He's in the final year of his contract. Could have been a lot of reasons for John Tavares maybe to be distracted or to struggle this year. He's been terrific. I would argue he may be the MVP of the Toronto Maple Leafs this year. He played that well in so many different parts of the game for this team. Same could be said for Mitch Marner. Contract year. Don't know which way it's going. He responds by playing great hockey, 100 points. They had to throw him back on defense the other night with the short body count. And, the Stars have played well. Matthews has dealt with injuries this year, but he's played better over the last, several weeks, and seemingly a little more healthy. And I think seemingly ready for the battle. And I asked that question, I think it was last week when we were talking, when the time comes in hard hand-to-hand combat type games to deliver the blow or to make the physical play. Are the Toronto Maple Leafs willing to make that sacrifice when it matters? We're going to find out, but I think they're more in tune to understanding that they will have to do that if they're going to get through the playoffs.
Yeah, I would say they've had their coaching staff in the locker room. Overall, the mood and the leadership we're seeing this season has them better positioned, at least, to make a run than in the past. They're a more complete team, 1 through 4 lines. But you mentioned Mitch Marner, so let's transition to milestone number 2 on tonight's special show. Mitch Marner with his 100th point of the season. He's had 99. He's had 97.
Yeah.
Tonight, he notched his 100th on a very important insurance goal late in the third period that, essentially sealed the division title for this hockey team.
And I guess it was somewhat apropos in some ways, because normally it's Marner to Matthews. In this case, it was Matthews to Marner for the goal, and it was a goal that was the 100th point. So you could see it meant a lot to him. I think it does mean a lot to players, great players, when they get to close to these milestones. It's something you like to check off that list. He had been close, like you said, 99 points. It's got to be extremely frustrating to get there and not be able to get the 100th point. At the end of the day, it all doesn't mean much if the team doesn't play well in the playoffs and don't make a deep run and, hopefully, try to go on and win a Stanley Cup. Dare I say that? But at the end of the day, you could see it meant something to him, just like it was important for Matthews to get that goal number 400.
Yeah, and for Marner we'll get to Matthews in a second, but for Marner to become he's only the 4th Leaf ever to have 100 points.
Yeah.
Gilmore, Sittler, and Matthews have each done it twice. It's an individual accolade. You could see the enthusiasm his teammates had for him, but you have to feel that they're going to just very quickly transition. Okay, we did that. Playoff time now. It's not about the points anymore. It's about the results. It's the regular season's effectively done for them at this point.
Yeah, they got the one more game, but it doesn't mean anything, which is good. I mean, unfortunately, because of their cap situation, all these guys will have to dress and play in that game.
Yeah.
Hopefully for the Leafs, knock on wood, as they say, that everybody will get through the game in one piece. But, this is, good for these guys. Good for Marner to get 100 points.
Yeah.
These are milestones that, these guys – at the end of their careers, they can look back. It's special. Not everybody gets 100 points. This year, I think we only have 5 or 6 guys that have 100 points in the league. It's not that common when you think about the history of the game. I think on the broadcast tonight, Mike Johnson said in the history of the league, there's only been 126 players that have reached the 100-point mark. That's a pretty long stretch of time. So for Mitch Marner, it's a pretty big accolade, and he's earned it. He's been a terrific player. He plays in all kinds of situations in the game to help you win. He's had a great year. He had that great moment at the Four Nations tournament for Canada, setting up the gold medal winning goal. So congratulations certainly to Mitch Marner, who's also, it's going to be a good week. I believe he's having a child this week as well. So good week for the Marner family.
100 points, a division title, a child on the way, and a very, very large contract on the way as well. That child's got a very bright future.
Yes.
Okay, milestone number 3 then. And, Alex Ovechkin somewhere was watching proudly as Auston Matthews fired his 400th goal into an empty net tonight.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly, I think he's 5th or 6th fastest to 400.
He's way up there.
Yeah, Gretzky was the fastest. Bossy was the 2nd fastest. So I think he's 5th or 6th. And, the question for me with Matthews, because, I posed the question, somewhat in a little bit of with tongue in cheek about can he catch Ovechkin, right? Because we just went through this Ovechkin chase with Gretzky. He caught Gretzky when many didn't think he would. Ovechkin's going to continue to play. He's going to play next year. So who knows where he finishes. But Matthews is scoring at a better clip than Ovechkin scored at. Now, the question for Auston Matthews, and this is where I think the challenge will be, is can you stay healthy and productive for the years that it takes? So we're I think we're a ways away from that, about 500 goals, I think, if I do quick math. But
and still going.
yeah, exactly. And still going.
He might end up at 950, so.
That's right, or better. Who knows? So, but Matthews is, it's been a little bit, Kyle. We've talked throughout the year, right? He's had some injury issues. Remember early in the year, the trip to Germany, the mysterious trip to Germany, and we didn't know what was ailing Auston Matthews. Well, I think that over the last several weeks, his game has picked up, and I think what's really going to be important Sure, you need him to score big goals and to score goals, period, in the postseason. But I want to see him. He's the captain. He's wearing that C. I want to see him lead this team in a lot of different areas in the playoffs. So I'll be keeping an eye on that because this is the first year that he does go into the postseason wearing that letter.
It's very true. And it's, we've discussed it numerous times. Although the goal production wasn't there this year, there were some injuries. His pace is still he's still at a 90-point pace, a 40-goal pace. But again, back to like a potential Ovechkin chase. Let's see what he's doing when he's 37 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
It's no way too early.
Way early.
But let's transition to their first round playoff series against Ottawa.
Yeah.
And something I just thought of while we're on air here. They've had a rough schedule in the last few weeks, back-to-backs, travel and stuff. It could be very advantageous for them that they're playing their first round series in the province of Ontario. They don't have to leave. They're just down the highway.
Yeah, it's a great point by you, Kyle, because think about if you're playing Florida or Tampa, first of all, that's trouble in itself.
Yeah.
But those are pretty good flights. I mean, that's a lot of miles to cover in a first round series. And so that will be a benefit of sorts. It's obviously a very, very short trip to Ottawa, so the travel will not be an issue. They'll get a couple of days off. I believe the series will likely start on Sunday. And, we'll just see where it goes. I mean, Brady Tkachuk has been dealing with some injury issues. So, we'll see where he's at. I mean, Ullmark has been terrific in goal. Now, they've seen Ullmark during his time in Boston. They certainly have getting used to seeing him in Ottawa now. He's played well for them. I think, to me, Kyle, the key to the series will be the Toronto Maple Leafs taking advantage of the Ottawa Senators D-zone play. I don't think they play well in D-zone. They give up opportunities. They're loose. I'm sure they'll try to tighten it up, but this is a process, right? The Leafs have gone through this over several years now, right? Several years of learning what it takes. The Ottawa Senators are in the infant stages there with this group. They'll be dangerous because they will be an underdog and they've got a good goalie and they've got good players. But for me, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, to win this series, the place for them to win it is to be strong in their end, win the battles in the neutral zone, make the Ottawa Senators play in their end, and it's not really where they play their best. If they've got to defend a lot in this series, I think the Leafs will take advantage and the Leafs will win. If this series is one where the Leafs can't establish that grind game in the offensive zone and keeping the Ottawa Senators in there and it gets into a back and forth, well, listen, then it's, I would say, they got a puncher's chance, the Senators do. So we'll see how it plays out, but they've gone through this 82 games, 81, one more to go with the idea now of getting back to this place, where they're looking to have the ultimate success.
Yeah, they match up obviously very well with Ottawa, both literally throughout the season. On paper, again, as you say, an Ottawa team, may possibly ahead of schedule in their infancy on their journey, but there's the parity across the NHL right now. There are no easy matchups, and that's just the truth of hockey in today's world. It's not like it used to be where, the first round was a gimme for a division winner, but this is a good, I agree. Let the Florida teams beat each other up for a round. Let them do their thing down there. They're finding themselves in a very situation. They're only 4 hours apart down there in Florida by road travel as well. So that's an interesting outcome for, the
travel helps them as well. I mean, those two teams played last year. I think Tampa is a better team this year than they were last year. So I think they're going to be much more dangerous for the Florida Panthers. Really, for me, the Panthers, when I look at the East, they are still, to me, when healthy, the best team. But right now, they haven't been healthy. And can they put it all together? And they're without Aaron Ekblad for the first 2 games as he finishes that suspension. Matthew Tkachuk, what's going to be the situation with him? So there's question marks with the Florida Panthers. It should be that should be a terrific series. And I believe the Leafs and Senators, it's going to be a battle as well. You're going to watch Florida and Tampa beat each other up. Well, the Leafs and the Senators will probably be beating each other up pretty good too.
A Florida team that, they've ended the season poorly by their standards, but there's a lot of reasons for that. There's been a lot of injuries, the suspension, just they kind of limped across the finish line here, but they're also the defending Stanley Cup champions. So
and a lot of that
bring it.
Kyle, a lot of that is on purpose. I mean, they have rested guys down the stretch. I mean, they didn't play a handful of guys in that game tonight against Tampa. When you've won like they've won there in Florida, they know when the bell is going to ring. They know it's important to, when that series starts over the weekend, that's what they need to worry about. So I'll be curious. I mean, the biggest thing is, where's Matthew Tkachuk in all this? Is he going to be able to jump in and play? Do they have anybody else that's dealing with nagging injuries? And, can they get through the first two games without Aaron Ekblad? And how will Ekblad be when he comes back in the lineup, not having played for, 6 weeks or so, whatever the number of time has been over the 20 games?
Yeah. And back to the Leafs. I mean, this is no knock on Wall, but the eyeball test, what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, it seems as though Stolarz will get the call in game one. He's been that good. He put such an exclamation point on things tonight. His ability to read pucks moving across the ice and make these one-time shot saves, he's just always there. And he's just that's always to me a sign that a goaltender is extremely locked in, his ability to read those passes and plays. The Leafs can't go wrong with either guy, it seems, based on what we've seen this year. But Stolarz is the guy, is he not?
Yeah, I thought, as we've talked about this, I've felt over the last couple of weeks that he was going to be the guy. Now, it could have easily gone the other way. Mm-hmm. But I think he's played himself, certainly. If he had the advantage, he's played himself further into that role, right? He's won 8 straight. I think in that stretch, he's given up 11 goals in 8 games. A terrific performance tonight. And, Kyle, you're so right about, with watching Stolarz play, at least right now, how locked in he is. One of the really underappreciated skills of goaltenders is their hockey sense. Yes. To understand, to your point, reading plays and understanding where things are going to be. And I thought he was excellent at that tonight, because they had Tage Thompson loaded for bear in that left circle a couple times, and he could literally shoot a puck right through the backboards. I mean, he can rip it. And Stolarz, he was on time and just ate those shots up. And if you're just a half second off, you're going to get scored on there by Tage Thompson. He was lights out in this game. He battled. He had some good fortune around the net. The Leafs battled for him around the net. But he has been really good this year and seemingly healthy right now. And listen, we'll see how it plays out, because I get the sense that, Joel Wall, we'll see him at some point too. And, hopefully that won't be a bad thing, because both those guys have played well this year when called upon. But I think Stolarz is your guy right now.
Yeah, and back to what you're saying, and some of those saves tonight too, it's not like he was barely getting across. He was stopping those center body, which means he's reading that play so well. It's like he's achieved some sort of a flow state. So if there is one negative to look at going into the playoffs, the Leafs again were 0-2 on the power play tonight. The power play has not been good to close the season. Calling back to last year's playoffs, their first round loss to Boston, they were 1 for 21 on the power play.
Yeah.
It's the only hole in the game right now. They're a complete hockey team, defensively, offensively. They're clicking on all cylinders. The power play has been terrible. How do they fix it by Sunday?
Well, they are 7th in the league in the power play coming into the game tonight, right? So the power play has been successful. It's in the top third of the league. So we'll see how things play out in the series. These things can be cyclical. They've been, again, when I say they're 7th in the league, it's over the course of the season, they've been pretty good. They have the personnel to get it done. Hopefully they'll find one early, and that kind of gets you on a roll in a playoff series. I am more concerned personally with the penalty killing, because they are 19th in the league coming into tonight's game on the kill. And there were some games this year, big games, most importantly against the Florida Panthers, when they allowed power play goals, and they allowed plays through the slot, and they allowed guys to get inside position in front of the net. The Ottawa Senators get on the power play. They've got guys that can make you pay. And so for me, I think the Leafs 5-on-5 game has been good. I think they'll figure it out on the power play. I'm not concerned. I mean, you never know in these series how it plays out. What I am worried about, though, is if there are penalties in this series and Ottawa gets power plays, the Leafs penalty killing will have to be good, and it'll have to be better than 19th in the league. So that would be the one area, if I had any worry, is their penalty killing. And, again, it's a new season. Everything starts fresh. maybe they'll be the best penalty killing team in the playoffs. We'll see. But that's the area I'd be most concerned about.
Well, they definitely have the defensive personnel to be a very good penalty killing team in the playoffs. But now they're going to be playing that dance. It's going to be a fine line dancing between establishing themselves physically, but staying out of the penalty box. And that is a fine line come the playoffs.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of times it just comes down to who's officiating the game.
Yeah.
Because some officials are going to let you play more. And so there's going to be fewer penalties. And other guys are going to try to establish a standard, and there might be more power plays in a game. So that's where the players, and this is where you have an experienced guy like Berube, you have an experienced group. We were talking before he came on. I think you said the stat, the Leafs have like the longest stretch of playoff, of making the playoffs now in the league, which is kind of amazing. It's amazing to think about because they have had really very little to show for it, obviously. But that is a lot of experience. And when you get into games where, you can't concern yourself with the officiating. And I think to have a calm demeanor. I can remember when Craig Berube was coaching in St. Louis, Kyle, the year they won the Cup, they had an awful call go against them in their series against San Jose. I think it was in the Western Conference Final. And it led to a rule change down the road where you could challenge a missed stoppage play for like a hand pass or something of that nature. And after the game, Craig Berube, his message to the team, let's move on.
Yeah. And
that's exactly what they did. And they held their composure and they went on to win the Stanley Cup eventually. But that's the thing. So we're going to see different games called differently. The team, the coaching staff will have to read the room on that particular night and play accordingly. And when they get power plays, try to cash in. And when they take penalties, you've got to kill them.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk back about someone they acquired at the deadline. I heard this stat during the game tonight, and I had no idea. Carlo has actually led the Leafs in ice time since he was acquired.
Wow.
I didn't know. I find that very interesting, though, and that it's such a unique way to contribute to the team by just being there. He's played well. And, his type of play is going to be very, very important in that first round. As you say, against a young Ottawa team, against a team, they can score if they need to. And it's a good acquisition. Lawton hasn't been as good, but he's come on lately and he's no longer like an anchor they're dragging through. This team is really firing on all cylinders. And I'm struggling to find a reason why people should not be optimistic. And they should be optimistic, no matter how many times the fan base has been burned in the past. This hockey team is as poised for success as we've ever seen them. And we've harped on this all season long. It seems like they have the coach more so than they have in the past that can keep them lined up for success night in, night out, the grind.
A calm demeanor. I mean, I think that's what Craig has. He played in the league a long time. He was a tough son of a gun. The guy played a lot of games, had a lot of fights, spent a lot of battles. But as a head coach, he's got a calm demeanor. And I think, his post games, his these guys, the coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs has to meet the media, like 73 times a day? I mean, it's endless, right? I mean, and yet he has been able to manage that whole dance all year long. He doesn't give them more than they need. I think the media, quite frankly, is a little intimidated by Craig because of his presence.
Yeah.
And I think presence is really what makes a head coach in any sport. You have to have that presence. And I think he has that. So we'll see how it plays out for the Leafs. It's hard. You said it before. The parity in this league is crazy. I could take teams that are not even in the playoffs, Kyle, and put them in a 7-game series against, the Jets or the Leafs or any of the teams that have 100, the Capitals, and they could win because it's that close. And I always say it's matchups and injuries this time of year. The Leafs seemingly are pretty healthy. They're getting a matchup that's seemingly more favorable. We'll see how it plays out. Remember, when people talk about, these things, we could talk to her blue in the face. Nobody was talking about, hey, I wonder how the Leafs are going to deal with Nylander's migraine problem that's going to cost him some games, right? Nobody was talking about it. Nobody even knew what happened, right? Matthews missed time last year in the playoffs. They had to make a goalie change in Game 7. Wall was good, then he was out. So, you just can't predict how things are going to play out. It's close. It's tight. But the Leafs have taken care of their business. I think they're playing a brand of hockey that can be successful in the postseason. They're getting a path that, at least on paper, seemingly is easier. They're healthy. Let's see what they can do. I think you got to have, if you don't have hope, I mean, you don't have anything. So you got to have hope. Yeah. This team has given you a lot of reasons to be proud of them this year. We'll see what they can do now.
Yeah, a couple of rounds of playoff victories would go very far for them right now. Looking around the rest of the East, and talking about the league parity, would anyone in their right mind want to face this Montreal Canadiens team right now? That's just they're young, they're fast, they just called the kid up, and the crowd went nuts last night. He scores in his first game. They've moved the federal elections French language debate tomorrow night. We're on the verge of electing a new prime minister, and they've moved the debate to accommodate a hockey game. That is a team. That's the type of groundswell that can carry a team that finishes at the bottom of the playoff bracket quite deep.
Well, the Montreal Canadiens have been on a roller coaster this year. Yeah. They started the season. Remember, their first game was a 1-0 win over the Leafs with Samuel Montembeault playing really good. I think he had like 47 or 48 saves, but they've been up, they've been down, they've won 8, they've lost 7. There were times this year when they went through stretches, they looked terrific. There were other times when it looked like they couldn't get out of their own way. Since the Four Nations break, they played very well, but now on the precipice of making the playoffs, they've gone cold a little bit again, right? They've lost a couple games. They need a single point. They just need to get that game against Carolina on Wednesday night to overtime. Now, obviously, you'd rather just win it, but they need one single point in that game. If for some reason they lose that game in regulation, it opens the door for the Columbus Blue Jackets with a win in regulation in their home finale against the New York Islanders. The Jackets would steal that playoff spot. So we'll see how it plays out. But Montreal, to your point, it'll be extremely disappointing if they don't get that point and make the playoffs for them and their fans. That said, they are well ahead of it. Suzuki is taken, in my mind, he's a superstar player now. Lane Hudson has had an unbelievable rookie year. He's a difference maker. Caulfield had another big year, over 35 goals this year. And then Demidov comes in last night. Everybody thought, this kid, he's a 5th overall pick. He's going to be a good player. He came in, Kyle, they gave a standing ovation just for the warm-up. And then the kid looks like he's played 10 years in the league. He comes out and makes a brilliant play to set up a goal on his second shift in the NHL, and then he scores another just really brilliant play to score a goal. So he looks like he's the real deal moving forward. I mean, there'll be bumps, but I mean, he really was impressive in his first NHL game. So they're going to be fun to watch. I hope they get in because it'll make for some fun hockey with the Capitals and the Canadiens. But it's been a crazy year, so we got to see. They need that one more point.
They do. It's and it's great the way the league is set up right now too for the races to go this late, go this deep. We're doing this show right now. There's one game left in the season for most of these teams, and things are just getting wrapped up now. It's quite exciting, and we're gonna have a lot of these shows come playoffs, and hopefully they're good news again. But that's the playoffs. This league is not predictable, and it's going to be night after night of excitement, and I am very much looking forward to those shows because I hope my tune doesn't change too much because we're riding pretty high here in Canada and Southern Ontario.
Well, the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs are just complete chaos, and we have so many crazy matchups that are like matchups you could see in a final in different circumstances under a different setting, right? Mm-hmm. Dallas and Colorado in the first round, Tampa and Florida in the first round. I mean, really intense matchups. Edmonton and LA playing for the 4th consecutive year in the first round. Edmonton with injury issues, trying to get back to the final. McDavid, Draisaitl and company. I mean, you got Vegas that's, kind of quietly gone about their business all year. They won the Cup 2 years ago. I mean, it's a really strong team. So it's and the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, what a great story all year long. They're like the Toronto Maple Leafs of the West, right? They're a team that's had good players, that's been in the playoffs, that has disappointed, and this year they win the President's Trophy. This is a really strong team. We'll see, and they have put themselves into that seemingly better matchup in the first round, and so we'll see how it plays out for them.
All right, well, folks, we're going to let you go over tonight. Once again, the Toronto Maple Leafs sealed the Atlantic Division with a emphatic 4-0 victory over the Buffalo Sabres in Buffalo. Mitch Marner records his 100th point of the season. Auston Matthews records his 400th goal of his career. Stolarz gets yet another shutout leading into the playoffs. The Leafs look good. Thank you for joining us on the Toronto Sports Rush channel. Yes.
Kyle, I have one more thing to say.
All right, let's hear it.
And I want to get it in now.
Yep.
Keep an eye on that fourth line for the Leafs in the playoffs with Jornkrok and Lawton and Lorentz, because those are the kind of lines that come up with big plays in important games. And Lorentz had one of those tonight. So keep an eye on that fourth line.
I think that's a very good call, EJ. And because we have discussed the depth of this hockey team all year, it seems like utilizing that depth moving forward or a big play from one of those guys is their key to getting through to the second, third, and possibly onto the final round of the playoffs. 16 more wins. Well, I mean, 17 if they can close it out on Thursday. But, if they mail Thursday in, I don't think anyone will be too upset.
Nobody's going to be worried.
That's why we're not bothering to go live after, but we will be live after many of the playoff games here on the Toronto Sports Rush channel, brought to you by the Bet Rivers Networks. Thank you once again for joining us for another live post-game reaction show. My name is Kyle Andrew, joined once again by lead NHL Network analyst, Mr. EJ Hradek. We will see you guys soon.